Hey everybody, good morning. We are here for another live stream, midweek stream. Hopefully my audio should be fixed today. I did end up changing the settings. I was asking it to do like a stereo audio, but there was only one XLR plug into the audio mixer thingy. And so obviously that was only taking one channel and trying to do that. So hopefully now with all the it's saying that it's a mono channel, I think that will fix whether or not these things are coming from the left and the right. Hey Matthias, welcome into the chat. Good morning, guys. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday morning. And you know what? Today I'm not as like out of it as I normally am. Normally I'm just like I'm like barely awake, but today I'm in it. You know why? Because we're doing a fun VFX shot today. We're gonna be doing a superhero landing shot. And this one I tried to do last week, but I didn't grab the assets in time enough. And it turned out I actually wanted to kind of do a knife shot because I was like, oh, well, we had this job that we were bidding for, and I wanted to have more bloody, gory stuff in there. So I was like, hey, let's do one on the live stream. But today we're going to do a Superman landing shot. This is the shot that we're going to be dealing with here today. This visual effects plate and all of the assets that we'll be using today, you can find on the Action VFX website. And you can go and get those in the link of the description of this video. Just scroll right on down here. We've got all of the assets here. It'll take you to the wish list page, which will include both the visual effects plate as well as all of these wonderful different assets. Now, we're not going to be using all of these packs. I have all the packs, but we'll pick out which assets we want to use here as we're going along, because obviously we're not going to need everything that these packs have in them, but we'll only need a couple of those there. But if you guys want to wait till the end of the stream, I do upload all the project files, and also a link down here is the Patreon. Go ahead and join the Patreon. We got all these wonderful project files that we upload. So like over the weekend, we did this VFX shot right here, which was made in Blender. And then last week, of course, we did the knife shot. You also get early access to videos that are going up on the YouTube channel and all that. But I don't want to bore you guys with that. Let's go ahead and jump into today's video because we really don't have that much time to create this whole shot here. But let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to do to get started here. I figured since it's a superhero landing shot, we're going to want to have the superhero character flying in from the sky at like a trajectory from over here maybe, and then he lands on the ground. So it's like a zoo bow, right? And if we do that, that means the camera has to move, because also I figured if the camera's tracking him, that might be fun. So let's do a bit of a set extension right now, and then we can animate all of that movement in as we're going along here. So first things first, I don't have a clean plate of this specific shot, but let's go ahead and create one real quick. And we're going to do that just by outputting essentially a track mat for us to be able to work with. I'm probably going to freeze frame this specific spot right here. This particular frame, because this frame, he's crouched all the way down. Let's see, do we like that frame, or does he crouch even more? I think right there we should be good. Okay, and if we set that to our current frame for our frame hold, that's just gonna hold it there for us for a clean plate. And we could do the clean plate inside of the actual compositor right here. This will take quite a bit of work, of course, but I mean, we could do it this way by just adding in like a roto paint. And, you know, this is pretty traditional, you know, just painting things out, right? Honestly, just follow the lines here and you won't be too far off. But we're going to try some new tools, of course, because we like to test out new things around here. Is that while I can do it like this, and honestly, I get pretty close just by roughly painting this. This is creating like a nice clean plate for us. I could spend a little more time on the lines to make sure that everything lines up here. No pun intended. But also, I can go to Photoshop and we could just use their AI cleanup tools that they have with inside of there. So I think that's what we're going to actually do. In our right node, I just have to output this to our correct directory, which is folder 3 here. And then under material, I like to create a new folder called MP for matte painting. And we will just call this 010 because that's our particular shot. And then let's call this out version 1.png. Now I'm going to save these as PNGs 16-bit. And if we do output rec 709, I think that should get us pretty close to, or an sRGB. Let's do output sRGB, and we'll tag that as it's coming in as well. So, and then I'll just render out frame 1000 because we're not going to be outputting the entire image sequence, just one frame. We're not asking for an entire image sequence, but now if we input that PNG file that we just outputted, and then we tag that as that same color output sRGB, this should look identical to our other plate that we have here, and it does. So that gets us all of what we need. Now, with this being said, we need to go into Photoshop and we're going to start working on the actual cleanup for this shot. Oops, wrong screen. What we'll need to do is we'll need to paint him out here, and we're going to need a set extension of going upwards to like the left of the screen. And we can do that pretty easily by just grabbing Photoshop and then dragging this photo in, and then I'll move this over to our single screen over here as we're working on it. But firstly, let's create the clean plate frame that's going to line up with everything. And we can do that pretty quickly just by using the lasso tool. And I'm using Photoshop beta because I don't like updating my softwares. But this beta is decently old. It keeps telling me to update my Photoshop, but I had a problem where it was starting to bug out. Every time I tried to do anything, it would always just pop up with like an error message and then would say, you know, can't access something, or can't access link server or something stupid like that. And so I just backed up to like an older version of the software and it did it. But just like that, you can see we already have a nice clean paint out. Now my concern is that it's actually painting out a little too much back there. So let's make this a little bit tighter to what we want. We don't want our background changing terribly much, and the reason why is because when he moves in front of it, if our roto's not perfect, I don't want to see the background too much. Also, it's when he's flying in, we need it to be a clean plate for that particular moment before he hits the ground, and we don't want to see a different size anything there. But yeah, as you can see, that does like a really clean job. I mean, it adds like one extra crack here that we might not necessarily want, but yes, that works. Yes, Alex, totally, 100%. It's typical Adobe. It's very frustrating to deal with sometimes, especially when you're in the middle of a job, which happened when I was in the middle of a job. The Adobe program started freaking out on me. And I was using 2024, so then I backed up to 2023, and then 2023 also, well, 2023 didn't have the AI functionality in it, so then I went to, what's it called? I went to beta, because the beta still worked like the old beta. But yeah, okay, so I'm thinking this for our clean plate is already what we want, so let's go ahead and export this. So we're going to export it as a PNG as well. Something to look out for is that we do want this to be 16-bit for our photo, because while we are converting this to a Rec 709 kind of workflow for these visual effects here, we don't want to really ruin too much other of our data. And so keeping it as 16-bit will at least preserve as much of the bit depth as we can on the photo. So we're just going to output that PNG. And you'll notice here in a second, I'm going to output this to our matte painting, and then we'll call this matte painting. And then I'm going to call this clean, because this will be our matte painting clean plate. Okay. So now if we go over to our photo over here, essentially we need to input this clean plate that we had. Okay. And if we tag this correctly now as our output, and then sRGB, The reason why I did sRGB, by the way, is because then it would look exactly like what it looks like over here inside of our Nuke comp. We have it set to sRGB as our viewing display, but that's just a personal preference. Now, for our clean plate that we actually already have the freeze frame that's happening, and we have him being removed. And as you can see, that does like a really nice job. Always watch out to make sure that any of the shadows that he is casting on the ground are also being removed. And what we're going to need now is just a simple merge node. And we're going to paint out specifically the section in which he exists. Again, this has to do with, we're doing the rest of this visual effects shot with an ACES workflow. And working in linear is really good for highlights and blown out portions of your image. So we don't want to screw the image up too much, especially if they're going to be doing any HDR color grading later. Probably for the purposes of this live stream, it wouldn't make a huge difference if I went the sRGB route of working on stuff. But because I just want to show you guys how like a proper workflow would be in like a normal environment that I would be working in, this is what I would be doing if this were the case. So yeah, now we just need to take this roto that we did here, and I want to feather it outwards. There we go. Now my only concern that I'm going to have actually is that the photo that we did, I'm thinking that's probably fine. Let's just feather it all the way out. I want the original plate to be denoised, and we're going to take this denoise analysis and let's move this over to this gray wall back here. Probably should have done this before we sent it to the matte painting. We're going to just increase the denoise amount all the way. And now everything should be denoised. I'm just going to copy paste that denoise over to our other plate, and then we can regrain everything afterwards when we want to have everything kind of mixed together. But now we have a nice clean plate for our shot, and we can have our dude fly in over top of our clean plate and then land where we want it to, and it can pop back to the original plate. But for right now, we just needed everything to be cleaned out, and that way we can do all of our work. Now, with that being said, we're going to need to create a second visual effects plate, and that is going to be, a second visual effects plate, and that's going to be the set extension version of it. The reason I didn't do this all in one photo was because lining this up later for the clean plate would have been somewhat of a nuisance, so I wanted to avoid that as much as possible. So let's go ahead and increase the canvas size here. Let's go zoom in over here. I want to lock everything to the bottom right hand side. We're going to anchor the photo to the bottom right hand side, and if I increase the width here to, let's just say 2500, and then we're going to do the height to about 4000. I don't know if this is correct or not. We're just figuring this out. Let's actually change the height here to 3000, and then we're going to change the width to 3500 because I want it to come in more from the side. Oh, whoops, cancel that. Again, we're going to be locking that bottom right hand corner, and so that way our photo in the bottom right hand corner is kind of where everything's going to be at. Now, just using our lasso tool like we did before, we just need to select essentially, well, actually, it could be easier even with the rectangle tool. We just use our rectangle tool here. We will select our photo, and then if we go up to select and hit inverse, then it will select everything else outside of the photo, the selection that we just created. Now we're just going to hit generate fill, and we're going to be generating the environment, the world that is around this area. Now let's see how well this does, because it's creating a lot from nothing. And honestly, just right out of the gate, that's like not bad. I think we're gonna go here with this last option for the photo here. You'll notice that it kind of screws this car up a little bit. So let's see. Does it screw it up in all of them? It really does. It's pretty sad. It doesn't understand cars, guys. Doesn't know what cars are. But yeah, so it's going to create this nice clean plate for us to use for the entire environment just in one click. That's pretty insane. And the only thing we really have to worry about now is this white Toyota Corolla that it kind of really just goofed up here. You'll notice that as you zoom in, you're going to see that there's a lot of flaws with the AI as well. But let's just say white Toyota car. Yeah, AI is pretty sick sometimes. It's kind of insane and also somewhat scary. I mean, but I view it as like a kind of tool that I can use. Whoa, that did not work. But as you can see, it doesn't always. Hey, this actually is close enough. It doesn't get things really good. I mean, as soon as you start to zoom in on really anything around here, you're going to notice how like goofy everything is, but like it's pretty impressive for what it gets you, you know? And the reason why this is going to work for our VFX shot here is because we're flying in so quickly from the top that pretty much everything is going to be a motion blur. We kind of just need data to be there. We don't really care how high quality that data is. But the fact that we have like, you know, kind of like these clouds and he's going to be flying in from over here, bam, we're pretty much just following his trajectory pretty quickly and then hitting the ground, and that's where it's freezing. But yeah, I mean, honestly, really quickly, that just generated a nice, clean visual effects extension for us to be able to use. So let's go ahead and export this now. So we're going to export this as another PNG. I'm going to call this map painting out. And then instead of clean, I'm going to call this extension. And this is going to be just our extension map painting that we'll be using over inside of our Nuke comp. When Premiere Pro can do AI VFX now. Yes, it does. I saw that at NAV. Now just some clicks, it'll be a little bit scary. Yeah, and it can do set like extensions of video clips. So you could drag in Premiere a video, and if you're like, hey, I want this to be like 10 frames longer, you can literally drag it, and it will generate those frames. That's mind-blowing. And kind of cool, actually, especially if you're like a documentary editor or something like that, where you're using a lot of footage that wasn't necessarily shot for the purpose of film. I can see that being a real big plus. I'm going to go ahead now and we're going to load in our set extension PNG file here. And again, these are all 16-bit, so I'm going to tag this as output sRGB, the color space that we outputted the photo as. And so now we're going to have another clean plate. Now this one is going to be at a different scaling though, and so we're going to need this to line up with everything else that we're doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're just going to add in a reformat node because we're going to be reformatting this photo to the correct size and scale that we need it to be. And we're going to set this instead, because it's coming in as 3500 by 3000. Let's go ahead and set this to 1920 by 1080. And then also we're going to start to transform scale this up. And we're going to try to match this to the bottom corner of our frame here. I think the other thing we could do is that currently if we set this to, let's try actually removing this transform. And let's go ahead and just view where this transform is at real quick. If we change the center axis here to this bottom right hand corner, which I believe the value is like the 3500 and 0, if we just type in those numbers, that's going to line up our center of our transform to the bottom right hand corner of our entire image. You don't want AI to take over your job. Well, that is true. I think that's a very valid concern. My thing, yes, I'm going to show the nodes. Apologize. My thing with the AI is that I actually feel like it's more of a tool that we can utilize than anything. I think that it will lessen the amount of jobs, but I don't think it's going to completely remove jobs from visual effects. And this is just my optimistic way of trying to look at these things, because, like, honestly, you have to look at things optimistically, otherwise you know, what we're gonna just live in a doomsday world of like what we're expecting everything to happen. And so my optimistic view is that it will become more of a tool that we can use as artists to create the kind of work that we want to create. But yeah, that's a deeper conversation for another time. Unfortunately, today, these types of live streams, we need a book. We got to book through this thing. So I just basically changed the center X and the center Y values of this transform to place the transform controller at the bottom right-hand corner of our screen. And what that's going to get us to do, though, now is that if I go view my my reformat node, let's see what kind of options we have here. This centers the photo, and if I don't center it and I click uncenter, it's going to take that bottom right hand corner and then place it in our bottom right hand corner. Now all we have to do is we need to match this plate here to the scaling of our original plate. And all we have to do that is just scale it up. We don't have to do any crazy like, oh, let's figure out where this needs to be. We literally just have to scale this up and find where that original photo was. An easy way of doing that actually is by going back to our Photoshop file, and if we disable everything, I'm just going to output this as a PNG file. And actually even easier, we drop in like colors such as like blue or something like that. If we just paint in blue and then place that behind our original plate here, this is the same exact scaling of the other photo that we're trying to adjust right now. But we do file, export PNG, and we just call this ref. Now, if we go ahead and load in our reference photo that we have, all we have to do is just replace this here, and we're going to see all these blue outlines here of what is going on. And now all we need to do is just take this scale, and just to the best of our ability, we're just going to be scaling this, and it should fit like a glove. And the reason why we did that blue is so that we could zoom in really closely here. And as I'm changing my values, you're going to see that we're going to see those pixels get closer and closer. And we just need that to essentially just be perfect. And now, if we go look at between this photo and our clean plate, everything should line up perfectly. Now this is tagged incorrectly, but we'll just do that. We're just replacing that. So now we have this. The only difference is this car wheel back here, and that's okay because we used AI, and AI screwed it up. Because that's what AI does, guys. AI screws things up. Great. Well, now you'll notice this is why it's important to, as much as possible, not use the 709 workflow. If we start screwing around here with like color in like crazy ways, you'll notice that there becomes a lot of banding inside the sky or different kind of like smooth objects. And this is where doing 709 kind of material things doesn't work too well. Now, Photoshop, to my understanding, doesn't have a great color managed workflow, which is why I do convert things to 709 kind of begrudgingly, because this is what ends up happening to our entire environment. Now, this is a problem, especially if this is going to be going to color grading, and I'll even show you guys here on a close-up. This kind of like disgusting banding that's happening in the sky here is because we outputted a 16-bit PNG like Rec 709 photo and then took it to Photoshop, did our work, and then came back. Now, the AI tools work in kind of a 709 workflow. I think the only workaround that I have found that I can kind of do is output a log format photo, take that to Photoshop, do my kind of AI Photoshop stuff there in log, output that again, and then reapply the log here. The problem is that the AI thinks everything's 709, so it might estimate the log correctly, but I have had it not, and then it'll make it way too saturated, and then things don't match correctly. So my workaround, at least for this particular shot, just looking at this, I know that having this problem here is problematic, and we need to fix that. And the way we're going to fix it is that by the time we get to the part where the image is resting, we're going to be using the original visual effects plate. Now, I want to show you real quick. If I swap over to the original visual... Oh, this is actually interesting. Well, this actually might be a problem of our original plate. The original plate on this particular shot has the banding in it, and I'm guessing that's because when it was uploaded to Action VFX, they outputted it as 709 themselves. In which case, this wouldn't be a problem. But I'm still going to do this correct because assuming that the visual effects plate was given to you correctly in the first place, then we want to be able to have the same correct workflow for how we would do that. So, with that being said, we have our set extension here, and we have our original plate, and we're going to need it to pop between the two of these as it hits the ground. This is our original plate, and I'm going to, before the reformat happens, add in another transform. And now, we kind of want to animate our camera to have that movement of following the guy as he comes in to hit the ground. So let's close that. I'm going to just set this down to one node that'll be opening at a time for us to be working on. But let's figure out what the timing is here. So if we look at this, he kind of like lands right here. I'm going to use this as our first pass of what we're kind of like hoping to achieve. I'm going to set in some keyframes on our transform node here. This will be the spot in which he hits the ground. It's on frame 23. And then let's see, let's go all the way back up to frame 1000. And then just kind of take our entire image here, and we're just going to drag it all the way to the top corner here of our photo. Now I'm thinking this is going to be way too slow of a animated movement. Yet it kind of is. Set this output here. I'm thinking let's have it go to frame 11. Can we do frame 11 be... Let's grab this first frame and move that to there. I knew the timing wasn't going to be correct when I first created the plate, but I wanted to give ourselves some extra room just in case we wanted to do something different. The other thing, let's add in a little bit of motion blur, because again, while the movement speed is important, the motion blur also kind of dictates how much we're really seeing while that's happening. So just setting that motion blur value to 1 will allow us to kind of have the correct view as this is going. Yeah, I like that speed. I could really feel that as he's flying in here. So now, of course, after he hits the ground, I do kind of want... Let's scale everything in by just a little bit more. And this is how we're going to attack this. Wait a second. Oh, right. Okay. And then let's just kind of like create a bit of a curve. So as if it's like a correct wha-bam. You know, we're kind of creating that jerk motion that happens at the end of the tilt down. That looks terrible. Thinking actually, let's see, Just trying to make kind of like this pop that's going to happen here. Yeah, that's feeling a lot better. I do think like there needs to be some general camera shake that happens afterwards, because otherwise it just feels a little kind of stagnant. But I think we could live with this for sure for right now. And we'll come back to this in a bit. But yeah, this will be the movement of the camera flying down. Yeah, let's play that back again. Again, it kind of needs to jitter a little bit more. Yeah, I like that. This is something that I feel like we could probably tweak for a bit. Okay, great. So that transform happens here. I'm almost wondering if we want to have that transform happen after the reformat. No, we definitely don't. My concern is that we just did this transform. I suppose we'll have to figure this out, because the next thing we need to do basically is import our visual effects matte. So I already created a matte from out of DaVinci Resolve, and it's just a black and white photo of our dude here, and we just need to isolate his specific layer. So let's tag this as 709, because I know that's what I tagged it as. We need this denoised footage here of our guy, but we only want him, and that way we can isolate the layers and then place him over top of everything else. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I have this mask that we have, and then if I go tag the change the RGBA alpha to like a red or something like that, because this is just a black and white JPEG sequence, this will isolate just him. So now I'll show you what that looks like. We just have him isolated on his own layer here. And I need him to basically be able to fly in and then hit the ground when we need him to. So our ground hitting moment that we have is at roughly frame 1023, I think is the frame in which that happens. So here we have frame 1023. Yeah, that makes sense. Now I'm going to use an OFlow node, and this is just going to allow us to time remap everything. So frame 1023, let's change this from output speed to frame number. And we're going to just change this to frame 1023. And we'll set that as a keyframe. And then, of course, also, if we just go to the end of our sequence, it's 1083. I'm just going to set that to 1083. Because, whoops, yeah, 1083. Because we want him to be moving at the speed in which he's moving there. But between this frame and, let's say, 1021, I want him to be at a completely different position. So that way, over the course of a couple frames, he basically just jumps down pretty quickly. I might change this to be a little bit earlier, because maybe he's prepping to land for a little longer. And let's see, at frame 1000, let's go back to our node graph here. Let's have him... I kind of want him still outstretched a little bit. So that way he does have some movement as he's going through the air. And that's just going to retime it to like what we need it to be. Because we're starting here at frame 1011. And I'm even thinking after 1023, he's going to hit the ground pretty quickly. Yeah, till 1030. Just make that a couple frames. So now he's really hitting that ground at the speed in which we need him to. And of course, at 1023, we want him to be hitting the ground. So let's add in a transform node now. And I'm going to just change the X value of this and the Y value of this to kind of put him in the center of his chest here. This will make it a little bit easier for us to rotate him around and have it where we want him to be. So let's do 981 and 428. Roughly is going to put it right there. And then now what this gives us the ability to do is just rotate him around where we need him. So I'm going to set the keyframe here for 1023. And then let's go back a few frames to like 1020. And let's just rotate him around. And actually, this is where I probably need this to be closer to the top of his body. So 983 and 602. And let's go ahead and just rotate that around because he's flying in. We're going to have to fix all of this. But we could use this with like grid warping and things like that to get his legs to go where we need it to go. But for right now, that's going to work for us. Now let's take this and we're going to merge this on top of our reformat node. And let's see, this right here needs auto alpha selected, and then of course let's take this and also make auto alpha selected. And let's take our transform node here. We're going to take this guy and we're going to scale everything up by 0.1 because that we already have to for our scene. And then right now we're just going to probably set a keyframe here. Set keyframes actually when he hits the ground. And let's see, let's have this guy go further up until he's basically out of screen. And we're just going to kind of like animate him to be where we need him to be. I'm going to enable motion blur as well. And let's just see what this looks like. His legs are certainly flailing. I'm actually thinking we're gonna want this before the let's do it this way. Because we're gonna want the same camera movement to be on him as well. This actually probably will be easier this way. Let's place this merge node here. And now we need to figure out what the difference in the transform scaling size is between this guy and that. So let's scale this up. I'm going to say no animation on all curves. And 1023 Let's zero out a lot of this stuff. And then zero the rotation. Basically, I need to find that spot where he exists. And let's just go ahead and set keyframes for everything. And then now, a few frames before, we can start to rotate our guy. Oops. We're going to rotate our guy. And also move him up. And I'm thinking all the way till here. Well, to here, right? And at this point, let's see, we're still gonna do something like that, I think. Actually, I think we can also add in a directional blur. Let's see, blur, directional blur. And with the directional blur, let's do blur length. Let's increase that. It's doing blur. It's doing like a zoom blur, which is interesting. Let's turn that off for right now, and we'll just see what this looks like. So if we go back to our original plate, or our shot now, this is going to have everything running back. So let's play on the reformat node. Let's just play everything back to see what it looks like. Oh, he's not actually standing at all where we want him to. We'll need to fix that. Also, I think, let's see. Let's go view this really quickly here. And now, I think if we play that back... Just get that to cache real quickly. Should be flying in supersonic speed from the sky. Just turn that off so we could play it back without having things overlapping. But yeah, I think that should work. Now, he is not the correct scaling actually to the environment, because if we compare him to the original visual effects plate, he is not the correct size whatsoever. So we'll have to fix that. Or will we have to fix that? It's not necessarily a bad thing, because we are just placing him at a different spot of the shot. He's like really far away now instead of standing right here. I think his trajectory doesn't make sense because he feels like he should be going higher. Let's fix that. Yeah, I think that should fix it. Him kind of coming down. to about right here. And then we'll fix it with adding in some explosions and stuff. Okay, so let's scale him up now to get him about the right size that we need him to be. And then overall, let's just use another transform node, honestly, to get him where we need him. I'm going to disable our O-flow for right now because that's going to cause some problems. But an easy way for us to do this, actually, is if we just go to like a later frame. And using our transform node that we have here, just plugging that into our original visual effects plate, this will give us the correct scaling of everything to our reformat, I think. Let's copy, paste. So now we need this transform node just, well, we'll just do it all over here. Let's scale them up slightly. What the heck just happened? I think I just, what? Okay, let's save this comp and restart it. I know that sometimes working with O-flow can really screw up different aspects of it, so I think I just hit the bug. We hit the bug. Yeah, we're going to add some nice smoke and stuff on the ground here momentarily, but I have to restart, I think, my Nuke. It does that every now and then, especially when I'm using O-flow. I've noticed that it has like that weird bug. Not a problem. For my own sanity, just because, again, we're just going to output another reference. I need the original plate, I think. Let's do out here. And then just place that over top of our other image here. And we can still have the photo. Let's export this as a PNG. And then we'll call this ref. Because we're just going to replace the other reference photo that we have. And then let's see. I'll open recent. We're going to open up the comp. Okay. We do have, let's find it real quick. We do have that reference photo, which I ended up deleting earlier. But this reference photo is the same exact size as our other photo that we have here. And we're going to just use this as our reference for the scaling of him. So if I go ahead and just replace this, you'll notice that, well, first of all, you'll notice that if I scale this down at all, we will see our blue outline here. If I am viewing the correct thing, which I'm not. But if we go ahead and scale this down, we will see our blue outline. But we will also see our double of where our guy is supposed to go. So let's go ahead and erase that. We need to take our current dude and scale him up slightly. And then I believe we can change just the area which he's at by changing the center. So if we change the center of him. Oh, no, wait, never mind. We don't want to do that because that everything's rotating around that. Then let's see. Let's add another transform node in here. And this is where we went crazy last time. Yep, and it did the same thing again this time. This thing is wild. Let's remove that. I have to restart Nuke again. I think the O-flow is the thing that's screwing it up. And I don't know how to reset it without restarting Nuke. I know that I ran into this problem on this last job that I did for a film where we were using OFlow. The only way I think I can fix this is by rendering out another EXR sequence, which let's just do that for the sake of my sanity here. Because we need to move him and get like all of the stuff. I think, okay. So OFlow goes, well, I already disabled it and moved it out of the stack. So let's see if that also has a problem. It still does. Crazy. Great. Let's use a write node here with our OFlow. And then, yeah, you have the same problem with OFlow. It's one of those frustrating things. I really like OFlow, but, you know, it does make things annoying sometimes. Let's just output an EXR sequence here with all of our channels embedded into it. And I'll just output this as ACG. This is going to be right here in the stack. So if we go ahead and say create directories and render that out, should just render out the section in which the OFlow exists. And then if I replace our sequence here, I can delete OFlow completely. I'm wondering if that's even going to solve the problem. And let's load that in, shot 10. And as a, well, I might have to restart our whole thing here, but that's fine. Just do that real quick. Whoops. Yeah, I ran into this problem last month when I was doing a film, and the only way to fix it was to basically constantly be restarting. So now if I delete OFlow and we just move all this up, this should work. So I'm going to again tag this as ACG. And yep, that's our alpha. And that's over top of everything. Fantastic. Now I should be able... Why? Is the file just corrupted? I'm not using OFlow anywhere else. I could just try a brand new Nuke comp. That might be the solution. I would rather avoid that, but let's let's restart again, guys. Good old bugs and errors, baby. Okay, I think that scaling should work for me. And now I just need the exposition of this to be correct. Which, by the way, I'm holding shift, and for whatever reason that fixed that bug. I don't ask questions. It's pretty close. Let's change the scaling here to less. I think now it's just the animation time is different. Cool. Okay. And there we go. And so that's going to line up over our thing. Let's go ahead and now just not use our reference photo. And this is just going to be over the original shot here. The thing we're going to want to do, though, is go back to the original visual effects plate, I think, at this point. Because we're going to want the shadows to come in on the appropriate time. We want his contact shadows to be there. Also, anytime we're going to have any issues with like artifacting or anything like that, we basically only want to use the set extension for the areas in which is a set extension, and then we want to use the original visual effects shot in all the other areas. And we can kind of do that. We already have our clean plate here that we can feed in over top of anything. Essentially what we want to do is we have our original shot, okay? This everything, we know that this bottom right hand corner is the same as our bottom right hand corner of our visual effect shot here. And so if I take a merge node, for instance, and then I just place this over top of this, we'll see that it kind of freaks out because it's not the same, the correct scaling or anything like that. But if we just like use a transform node, it'll just pop it onto our scene. Now we could totally do this and then just align everything ourselves, which accidentally moved everything. We could just align everything ourselves and just kind of like line everything up, and that's not that bad. But there is an actual easier way of doing this, a more automated way, if you will. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we already kind of know that our read node here is 1920 by 1080. So if I type in 1920, that'll set our X value of our center all the way over to the right hand side. And then we also know that our Y value is 1080, but we know that 0 is at the very bottom. Well, we want now this complete zeroed out position here to be on the right hand side of our image. And I believe there's a couple ways we could do that. First, we could use a transform node like that, or we could reformat our image to the correct scaling by selecting 3500 by 3000 and then not hitting center and then also not resizing. And that's going to place everything here on the very bottom. Now, I wanted to jump to the right-hand side, and I think there's a couple ways we could do that. The reformat node might not do it for us. If we do the transform node and then set this to 1920 by 0, that's going to set our hex value down here to 0. This is now placing this in whatever it understands the right-hand side of our image to be. Let's see if we can get this to be decently close to what we want, what this number is. Yeah, that number doesn't really make sense to anything, but what we could do is we just zoom in here. I mean, I was hoping there would be more of an automated way. If you guys know an automated way, let me know in the comments below, other than just dragging and dropping it. But I think what that's going to allow us to do is we're going to notice that the everything kind of lines up pretty perfectly. The only difference is the denoise amount, which we are going to want to do on the rest of our sequence here. So we're just going to denoise everything. But we are going to get a hard line here, and that's because the AI is not perfect with where it lines things up. It kind of changes the bleed as it's going into it, which isn't necessarily a problem. But it is something to watch out for, especially on specific areas of your image where you know that there's going to be data that you want to be carried over. And that kind of happens throughout into like different spots. Like obviously the AI created like some different bleed values here for its extension. All we need to do to fix that is after our merge node here, let's actually do another merge node, and we're just going to essentially crop out the areas in which we want the original footage to be and the areas in which we want it to be alpha. And let's go view that real quick. We already know that we're having a problem with this car, so let's go ahead and just kind of create a roto here, and I'm just going to kind of create a roto around the top as well. But we know that these two sides of our image should be perfectly fine because that's the top, that's the right hand side and the bottom hand side of our image. Now if I just pre-multiply this and we blur it, I'm going to fix our mask that we created here. That should work. And now, if we go ahead and merge that on top now, we'll notice that we're not having as many problems, if not at all, because we have already blurred into the areas in which we know we want for our shot. So that's pretty good. So this right here is the actual original video. And we can see that by if we remove our merge node here, this actually removes our clean plate that we had done earlier. And this is great because now at any point we can actually remove this merge node and also remove this frame hold, and we will then get our original visual effects plate back into our shot, which is exactly what we want. So let's move all of this up, this original clean plate that we had created, and we need now the clean plate to animate back in the shot of him like kind of like turning around and looking around and such, because now all we need to do is have this merge node here of this guy turn off at some point and have it turn on to the original plate, and then that way we are, and that's going to probably happen on frame 1023 because that's the frame in which he lands. And I don't think we're doing any retiming after this. It's just him landing. Actually, no. It does go to about frame 1025, I think. But yeah, we'll notice that if we turn this off and then we turned this off, we actually get him in the exact same spot. And that's kind of what we want here. So, fantastic. Let's go ahead and have this animate in here at 1025. And also this frame hold, we're going to want to kind of get rid of that at frame 1025 as well. I'm going to use a merge node to do that actually. And we'll have one merge node that kind of controls everything is what I'm thinking. Let's just call this control alpha. And this control alpha merge node here, we're going to control a bunch of different merges just with this one. This will make it so that way we don't have to reanimate everything a bunch of times or copy and paste our values. All we have to do is just go to our merge 6 here, for instance. This is going to be merging between our frame hold and our original plate. And that's going to allow us to, whether or not we're going to be freezing our footage. So for this merge 6 here, we're just going to say add expression. And we're going to say control alpha, because that's what we named our merge node down here. We're going to call this control alpha dot mix. And it's just going to find that mixed value. And you'll notice that a green expression linking has been connected to it. And we need to do that for basically everything going forward. So we have our clean plate here that we have. We're going to also want that expression. So all we have to do is go hit edit expression, copy this, click OK. And then now we're going to go into our merge 2 here. And then we're going to add expression. and we're going to say mix. And then now, of course, we're going to go to the very bottom here to this ACES-CG thing that we had here. We're going to say edit expression, sorry, not ACES-CG thing. We're going to go down here all the way to our guy here that was on the alpha. We're going to set a add expression. And we're going to say control alpha mix. And that's going to control all 3 of these mix nodes through this one control node here. And we can see that by me just changing this value allows us to get our other guy. Just through one switch, it changes everything to what we need. And that being said, though, let's find the moment that we want here. Let's say set keyframe. And let's go to 1024, and we're going to set that to 0. Let's see what that looks like. So now we got our Superman flying in. He should hit the ground and transition. Oh, this song is called Extra Avocado, by the way. Just looked over at the screen to see what song was playing. And let's see, this should play back and it should line everything up. And so that way we're going back to our original visual effects plate. The great thing about this though now is that our original footage is better. So it's not just the alpha. So if we did have people walking in the background or reacting to the Superman hitting the ground, then they will all be correct. It's not going to be like that AI freeze frame that we had. It's going to be back to the original plate of everything. And this makes it also so that way everything's kind of high quality again. That way we're not dealing with any weird AI artifacting or, you know, our 709 workflow of going to Photoshop. This is essentially just our dude coming and hitting the ground. Which, that's pretty close. I think we're right on track, guys. I think that's... I'm going to have him go down just a little bit more. Start in a little bit closer. So that way we're always tracking something. So let's go and save that again. Just play that back. And then we could start adding in all of our ground cracks and kind of craziness that we want to have on top of it all. So as like a recap, basically what we're doing here is this is all of our original visual effects shot. This is kind of like our set extension work that we're doing here. And then this is transforming this set extension to move with it. But what we're doing is we have our set extension and we're putting on top of that set extension the original visual effects plate, and then that way that's like a window into the original shot with like the extension past everything. And then we have our alpha of our guy here who's flying in, but he's being turned off once he hits the ground, and it's going to the original plate that we have. And yeah, I think that looks pretty sweet. This is just him flying in. So now we have to add in like all of the dust and cracks and everything getting blown up as he hits the ground. Yeah, I like that. some of my favorite superhero landing stuff is like from the show The Boys. I think they have like this very visceral, real looking like smack into the ground type of VFX shots. Let's go ahead and clean that up. Okay, great. So now we're going to get into the area in which we will be adding in all of our smoke and dust and all that stuff. Now, a part of that wish list kind of like folder that I created all of this stuff here, in which we will be using some of these assets. So you guys go ahead and click on that link in the description. Again, you just scroll down here, click on this Action VFX link. It'll take you to this wish list folder of the stuff that I have. Now, if you already have your own assets, you guys can go ahead and grab your own assets and use those. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to show you guys how to use some of these assets from the Action VFX website. So I'm going to first grab something probably like this ground explosion here, and then we'll find something that kind of like works for what we're doing. A lot of this is in slow motion, so we will need to retime it. Good old O-flow, baby. Let's see. Kind of like this. We can have this happen in front of him, honestly. So yeah, let's go ahead and download this guy. Download the ProRes. I don't need the OpenEXRs for this video. I do need to download to the correct folder, of course. So let's do that real quick. To our VFX material folder. And I'll call another folder in here called assets. So that way we can keep everything organized. So we're going to save that there. We're probably, let's see, we'll grab some other stuff here in a little bit. But for right now, let's go find that assets folder and unzip it. Okay, great. Now we want to use our shadow and our beauty asset files here. So we'll drag both of those in. And now since the animation of the camera movements happening here, we can do all of like our original visual effects plate basically over top of the original thing here, since that's when we're already comping back into him and the original plate here. So there's no need to do this later, but let's go ahead and tag all of this. So we're going to tag this as input or Rec 709, and another one as another Rec 709. And this is going to be our kind of like explosion of our blocks, which we're going to need to use a time offset for this to get this to be correct. Let's do... We're going to retime all of this as well. I kind of want the first frame of the explosion to happen on frame 1019. Well, actually, no, it's not 1019. It's when he hits is like right here. So 1024, I suppose. We could have it happen a little bit before. I think 1023 is when he first hits the ground. So if I change this to 1022, should be the first frame of this kind of happening. Need one frame earlier, I think. Yeah, perfect. And all we have to do is we just have to merge this on top of our original shot here. And I can use a transform node after this, of course. Let's just go ahead and scale it down slightly as well. And taking this on our over, let's try this. Let's take this and then multiply this value onto it. So that way we're just kind of getting the cracks here. We want to actually multiply, or we could use... not screen. I think multiply should be correct. Let's use multiply first and then use another merge node here. And actually an easy way of doing this instead of us just guesstimating this. Let's set that to 1. If I take this white point here and we select the white point of this kind of like ground explosion, so we do that, it's going to then make this so that way when I multiply this over top of everything, it gets pretty close to the exact color that we need. Now it is creating a bit of a shadow around everything, and I think that's just because our actual alpha of this whole thing is a little too large. There's definitely a fine line boundary of what we need this to be. Love how that just like pops. It doesn't actually go in between. We could do it that way. The other thing we could do is, the reason it's doing that is from this outer edge. Actually, I wonder if I pre-multiply it, if that will fix our issue. Nope, pre-mult made it worse. Okay. The way I would fix it then is if we add in another merge node and then roto out around that merge node. Let's try that real quick. Basically, just find the outside edge of this. This isn't going to work when the ground starts to explode, though. Obviously. But that works for at least him hitting the ground. It's funny. I do like those cracks. That works pretty nicely. It's just it's not going to work once the ground starts to explode. Which is all good. Then we have our shadow. And we can also merge our shadow in onto the ground as well. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to need to fix this outer edge here. And I don't know the best way to go about doing that. I'm thinking that we can maybe control the value of it somehow. Kind of making everything a little bit darker. That makes everything a little bit brighter. Oh, technically speaking, it's not on the top of this. It's only on the bottom here. So we could use our merge node method and then just make sure that everything up top is... Let's try that. So we're just going to hug this bottom edge here a little bit. And we'll just make that a little bit larger because I know we're going to want it to be. And then we'll pre-multiply that. And that should get rid of that bottom kind of like shadowed edge that we have there. And we're going to be retiming this anyway, so that's not going to be a huge issue. I think we could get away with that. So now we've got our concrete kind of like getting blasted upwards as he's hitting the ground. And we're going to want to retime this, of course, to the first hit. So let's see. Again, we'll probably want this to be off. So we'll set the keyframe there. And then as he's hitting the ground here, I'm going to have it animate in. Probably have it just be a little bit. And then it just goes to full blast there. Now... before everything else here, let's add in an O-flow, and that's going to allow us to control the speed at which this particular element is going. So I'm going to change it to frame again, and let's see, 1023, we wanted this to be frame 1, or we actually wanted it to be frame 1000. Actually, what frame did we want it to be? 1 second. We wanted it to be frame 1023. That's what we wanted. 1023. And double checking. Yep. Next frame is 1024. So, yep. Here we set this. Well, actually, we'll set this to 1024 because we know for sure we want this frame to be 1024. Hey, how's it going? Is it Nick Hill? I don't want to mispronounce your name. Thanks for coming into the chat. Currently, we are working on a Superman landing shot, the effect shot. So this part right here, we know that on 1024, we want it to be 1024, but I'm also thinking that by 1026, we're going to want this explosion to be a little bit more. So probably, let's go 1028. And by 1030, let's see, maybe we want it to be quite a bit larger. Something like that. Oh, SmexG, welcome back. SmexG is, I always pronounce your name probably wrong. This is your 3rd account. Well, thanks for the other subscription. All right, we're just going to animate this upwards a little bit. Oh, you know what? That's good there. And then I'm thinking... see how this looks. Okay. And now trying to have that pop in a little bit faster, but maybe not quite too fast. It's a line at which we want this to be at. Yeah, I like that a lot better. It's feeling good. The roto here, though, we've got to watch out for us losing any blocks off the sides. Let's remove the first set here. I don't want to clip anything out. Okay, great. And then let's play this, play that back again. Now, we are getting this kind of like weird multiplication that's kind of happening here for where we're losing some of our materials, and that's just some weird blending that we're having. This is partially due to the multiplication that we have going on here. We set the white point to the blocks, which we can actually see how this happened here. We set the white point to the blocks. And then what we're also going to need to do is we're going to need to set the black point to the cracks in which are on the ground. Now they're already pretty close, so let's do that real quick. If we select that and then just hit that, should get us pretty close to what we need that to be. Now if we multiply that over top of everything, now, instead of using our multiply here, for our actual grade node that we have going on, we'll want the white point that we just selected as our white of our block to be the color of the concrete. So now all we have to do is change our gain value here to the actual blue concrete that we want. And I'm probably going to go with a little bit of a darker blue. And then our lift will need to be set to a black point that we want it to be set to. And I'm just going to set it to like our shoe here. Maybe something a little bit darker in our scene. Yeah, let's do that part of the shoe. And now, if we take this A alpha and then plug that in, this is going to be set up to the color of the concrete that we have here. Pretty good. It's pretty close to what we want. And now we're not having the issues with the multiply. The multiply kind of allows like a bleed to happen, whereas we don't want that. We kind of want everything to be lined up just perfect. Let's see. Now, my only concern is, let's see. Firstly, let's get rid of this color correct because we're not using that anymore. And then our second thing is I want the gain here. Let's just adjust this gain slightly. Okay. And again, we're having kind of like this circle that's happening. I'm wondering if that's going to be okay. The only other thing that we might want to do is have our shadow dropped in as well. So we'll do the time offset, we'll do the O flow and the transform. Let's copy all of this stuff and then paste this over here. And that's just going to add in those contact shadows. Kind of see where that's going. Of like how everything is blending into the environment a little bit better. And for this frame here, we're going to need this to animate in. And again, we'll set the keyframe here. And then at 1023, we'll kind of like have that turned off a little bit. And then again, completely off on 1022. And now that's particles of him hitting the ground. I think that's going to feel a lot better in the scene. Now, he is disappearing. His feet are disappearing here. Unfortunately, we don't have like 3D control over these, like this particular explosion effect, which is somewhat unfortunate. Because we could have it happen in front of him and behind him, potentially. Let's see, what's the best way to go about doing this? Because we're going to need to figure out depth on these blocks here, so that way we can place him kind of in the middle. Or we're going to have to roto each of these individual blocks out and do it that way. The other thing is we could just take another merge node here, and we know that we already have his alpha. So theoretically, we could just... oh, I deleted his mask. We could just take the mat of him. Let's load that into here real quick. All we have to do is tag that as our output, Rex 709. And then if I select this, set that to the red value here, and we say invert, he's going to be sitting on top of our blocks. Which maybe that's what we want for this specific asset, and then we could put more assets in front of him. I think that's probably going to be the best method. Superheroes just going around breaking everything. So let's go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to put some blocks in front of him now. So let's find another explosion asset that we have real quick. We have some more of these like kind of assets. I can use something like this and then just not see the ground. Because we already have kind of like the ground cracking effect that's having. Yeah, we're definitely going to add in some nice smoke as well. You were right on track, Matthias. We got that. We will be doing some fun blasts here in a second with all that. Like a sonic boom kind of effect. Yeah, let's do this ground burst 2A. Let's download this real quick. Throw this into the correct folder. And since we already have kind of like our outline of everything we need, we just have to copy paste it. So yeah, 2A is what we just downloaded. Let's go ahead and delete these zip files, keep things a little cleaner in here. And then I'm going to take the beauty. I'm not sure that we need the shadows because we're not going to be using the ground connecting portion of it. We do actually have some camera shake. Right now, we're not viewing that section of it. The camera shake happens all later. And then do output, Rex 709 here. And so now, after... Yes, the superhero VFX on the boys is crazy good. Like, I love... And that's what I was saying earlier. I love the... Homelander flying in shots of him. It's always just so visceral with how it hits the ground. It just feels so impactful. Okay, great. So now we have this. We already have this merge node here. We're going to add in an additional merge node below it, and this is going to have our effects work on top. So let's just copy paste our work that we already did. Paste all of that in here. And then this is not going to be on the B. This is going to be on the A of our shot. And then let's adjust our transform here to have everything line up a little bit better for how we want the ground hit to happen. This is going to be in front of our character. So we're going to kind of like have everything line up a little bit more so in front. I might scale everything down. I think I accidentally just screwed up my scale. There we went. Great. And now I can go ahead and just scale everything down. And I just want this to sit in front of our dude, but not in front of his legs. Because essentially we're just trying to create a 3D kind of like effect here on how we want everything to line up. Hey, Ben, welcome into the chat. We're just working on some superhero visual effect shots here. Great. So let's see what this looks like now. So now it's going to sit in front of him, and it also flies behind him as well. Let's see what that all looks like with everything playing back here. We're going to add in some smoke and whatnot as well, coming in a second. like the impact moment on the ground. So let's cache that out. Yeah, we dealt with some bug issues earlier with the O-Flow, the node, and that was fun. Turns out that, to fix it, you just have to not use it. Well, you just have to render it out. I'm probably gonna. Is O-Flow created default by Foundry? Because I feel like I should probably email them about that, because I've had problems with it now on this shot as well as the last film that I worked on. I don't know if it's something that I'm doing or is something that is an actual bug. Be nice if it was fixed, though. I think I'm going to have it start 1 frame earlier. Overall, I mean, that's starting to look like what we want. I do think that the impact moment of him hitting the ground here, I guess that's correct. I don't like the camera shake. We're going to have to revisit that also. Camera shake is something that I always have problems with, I feel like. I'm never super happy with how it turns out. We already have that kind of effect happening, so maybe something like this. Let's do some dust real quick, and then we'll add in some additional cracks on the side, I think. So what does a good old dust wave look like of him hitting the ground? Feels like a jump cut. Can you maybe smooth things out? Yeah, I will be smoothing it. It's that transition right here. Let's see. Oh, no, it's this guy right here. There we go. There is a... Let's see. Let's add another transform node in here. And I'm going to set the center of it to about right here. So if we change our center to 949 and our Y to be 409, maybe even a little bit higher, I think. Yeah, there we go. We can actually rotate this specifically. So let's see. Let's rotate him. Just looks kind of dumb right now. 1 second. We'll figure this out. Actually, wait a second. Let's have him like that, and this transform node here. If he's already rotated to 0 at this point, and then here, a couple frames earlier, he's rotated to the other value that we have, which is... Let's do this real quick and then turn off motion blur. Yeah, let's keep motion blur off for this guy. I also think that's potentially part of the issue. Feel like there's probably too much motion blur because I was motion blurring him and then I was motion blurring the camera movement. Whereas theoretically, if you're following someone, there would be less motion blur on them because you're moving at the same speed as them. But I was motion blurring him on the original plate before I was adding motion blur to everything. And then that was kind of screwing everything up. So now you can see his figure a little bit better. Yeah, it feels a lot better. And then now if we add in a nice smoke dust wave, so let's find something for that. That's a top down. We don't want that. I actually kind of like that dust front 1. Dust front 2 also looks great. Let's do dust front 2. Just download this dust front file. And we'll come back here in a second, probably for one of these cracks, I think. But yeah, for anybody else new here, if you guys click on the, I have all of these assets located in a wish list folder. So if you want to grab any of these things, you can grab them on the Action VFX website, including actually the plate. The plate's free, so you could go grab that for your own leisure. Let's see. For our assets now, we've got our dust wave. Let's just drag that in here. I'm going to tag this as 709. And let's see, I'm going to use this over top of our merge node and add in a transform and then I'm going to do the same thing we did earlier with our time offset and our O-flow. I like the speed at which all of that stuff takes place. So I think this will probably get us pretty close to what we need. And then now all I have to do is just place this over top of the area in which we want it. The other thing is we're going to want to change the color of our dust here in a second. But for our merge node here, let's go ahead and just change this to a plus. And now, just place this over top of our shot, and then maybe even change the scaling slightly. I'm going to change the scaling a little bit, and then also I'm going to change the time offset here. Well, 1021 is probably correct. Yes, the trick was using the shift button when you're using the O-flow. That is correct. At least it did work then. Although I was just able to move this just now with the O-flow and it didn't freak out, so who knows? I may have done something wrong. I'm going to set the white point to the white point of this, the smoke that we have here. And now if I go over to our VFX shot, we want this kind of smokiness to live within our scene a little bit better. I'm probably going to take the gain of this. Let's see what it looks like as blue. I don't know that blue is going to work for us. Might find something like one of these gray patterns here that we can use as like a nice kind of like effect. It's just gray. Now, if I just add in a little bit of contrast to this. Let's play that back again. Caching on this is brutal. Oh. Okay. Our O-flow here, I'm going to disable, and then our time offset here, we will set this to 1021. I'm going to use a separate O-flow that is just going to be changing the output speed here, and I want the speed to be much quicker than what it's currently at. And we'll maybe even like twice as fast as that. I'm not going to lie. We just want this to be pretty quick. And our time offset here to be even earlier than that. 10, 20, 19. Here with our O flow, let's change this output speed to be even twice as fast as that. And then let's just adjust our transform slightly here. And just have this play back again. Let's see what we got. I've always wanted to be a superhero. If you guys were a superhero, what would your superpower be? What would your superpower be? I feel like flying is pretty OP because imagine how awesome flying around would be. Like just, oh, I'm going to fly to my friend's house real quick. That is insane. Like just the ability to do that. And no more traffic. You don't have to drive in traffic anymore. Or just maybe even teleportation. If teleportation was like a superpower, that would be a pretty OP superpower. Just for like ease of use, you know? I'm going to do one more thing here for today. We're running out of time, but him flopping around is not ideal. So what I want to do is let's go to this guy here. And let's use a frame hold. Yeah, flying and invisibility. Invisibility would be pretty cool, yeah. I think it's like there are a lot of superpowers that like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Okay, so I have this frame hold here. I'm thinking we can have this frame hold. Let's see, he's flying up, and then at about 10:19, I want him to be rotating here. This is where I'm going to want the frame hold to exist. If I had a merge here and I add another merge here and then I add another merge between the merges, I think that's the best way to do this. So we've got this guy, and then all I need to do is between the guys, I need them to be the same kind of like location. But anyways, I need this to be set to 1. I need this to be set to 0. And then a frame before that gets set to 1. And this gets set to 0. And ideally is just going to kind of be like animating between the two of these. But I need to figure out when he's rotating, I basically want it to have him not be in that pose. So basically he rotates around like that. So then maybe we set the keyframes one more time for this merge node and this merge node. And then back on 1021, we set that to 1. And we set this to 0. So essentially all we're doing is for these frames right here, then he gets set back to kind of like how he's doing. It's like he's basically just turning to a ball. But that's because what we need is him to be smaller for that rotation period of him flying in, right? So check this out. So we're basically, this is the dumbed down version that's not animated, like so that way we can kind of see the trajectory at everything's happening. He's flying in, and as he's rotating, he needs to be kind of like a ball. That way he's not like, ah, as he's turning around. So let's look at this reformat node here again at the very end of our stack and then play everything back. I think that was just like catching my eye. I was like, I'm not going to be happy with this VFX shot if that's what happens. Let's cache this back here and see what this looks like. And then, of course, this is just the ground basis, and you guys can add in as many more VFX shots as you want into this, or not VFX shots, but assets into this as you want. As per usual, I will upload all of these project files to our Patreon afterwards, and you guys can make any adjustments to these as you want. Extend out the shot. I'm only playing from like frame 1011 here to 1037, but you guys can extend that out as much as you want. So let's see how this plays back. Oh, that feels a lot better. As you can see, he like rotates now when he hits the ground, right before he hits the ground. I mean, I'd probably add in some more smoke assets, honestly, as like a bomb sonic boom potentially that happens to it. I'd probably adjust the camera shake here a little bit. This isn't like enough work for me to do a whole nother live stream on, but if you guys want to grab the project files and adjust them and mess around with them, then feel free. Those will be over on the Patreon. As I said, after every live stream, I go ahead and upload all of the project files, and you guys can grab those and use those to your own delight and will. But other than that, I think this is going to do it, at least for this VFX shot here. This is just a Superman kind of landing shot. This is the bare bones basis, and you can go so much more on this. I always hate my camera shake stuff. Eventually, I'm going to want to find some kind of plugin. It would be amazing if there was a plugin for having the, like, hey, I want this to happen like a boom, like a sonic boom, and you can adjust the amount of, like, camera shake to it. So I think that would be nice if there was a plugin out there that did that, but I haven't been able to find one. I think on Nukepedia there's probably something. I think I saw one once, but it was just like an overall general camera shake, whereas I would love to have it kind of like transition in. But oh, what's my next VFX stream? That's a good question. I was planning on doing this Superman one, and I'm glad we were able to get to it. I think the next one I always, here's how I decide what my next streams are gonna be. If people are Patreon subscribers, they get to have suggestions higher, and then I'll take those suggestions. But more than likely, I otherwise go to the practice footage library on Action VFX's website. I find something that I like, and then I go do that. The next one that I thought was pretty cool was, it's just going to take a little more time. It might be like a multi-week stream. Is that they have this post-apocalyptic drone attack sequence that they have here. And I thought it'd be fun to do like a full CG shot and take a drone and like animate it and then drop that into your sequence and stuff like that. So that might be something that we do. I don't know if that'll be next week or if that'll be a couple weeks from now. I am going into pre-production on a feature film that we will be filming. Oh, it's like at the end of May, beginning of June. So that's taking up quite a bit of my time. I actually almost wasn't able to stream today because I had a meeting that was potentially going to be coming up. But that's actually got moved to tomorrow, so I didn't have to worry about that. But as time, like as I start to get busier, the midweek streams are going to be harder to schedule around. But this is the superhero shot, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button below. Certainly helps out the video and the algorithm. And then if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We do weekly live streams where we'll create a visual effects shot from scratch in about 2 hours, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. because I got to go to work and PSD. And then also on the weekend, we do a much longer stream. It's about 4 to 5 hours long where we do Blender's CG shots. And the last one we did was this kind of like Tim Burton-esque wooden man sitting on a bed contemplating life. A very fun stream. I got to do some sculpting, which I always love, and then a lot of hand painting as well. But yeah, this is the Superman landing shot. Not bad for an hour and a half, basically, to get this shot done. But you guys go grab these project files. They'll be up on the Patreon. I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you guys this coming weekend with a brand new live stream. See you guys soon. Bye.